Express static. There's no need for everyone to be so afraid of new technology, Fred, the voice on the radio said in bewilderment. Express Electronics TM has been nothing but kind and generous to our whole city and the world, for that matter. Wouldn't you agree, Harper? I raised an eyebrow as I drove to work, glancing from the road to the radio. The second host seemed hesitant when she answered. Well, Fred, I personally don't blame people that much. We've always liked to speak openly here on your show, right? It wouldn't be the first time something has gone wrong because profit was prioritized over safety. Remember when Express commercials? Fred interrupted. The show was cut off suddenly. There was brief static before cheesy music started playing in the background. Harmless and clean, it leaves a great sheen. Try bustling bubbles today. It cleans your car, it cleans your kiddo, it cleans anything. I sighed, tapping my steering wheel as I waited at a stoplight. I don't know why I kept listening to this show, the Fred Fast Talk show, except maybe to make myself angry. Maybe it was because I always felt guilty when I heard other stations bringing up the real concerns about Express actions, especially considering my involvement. I wish I could escape all of this. I shoved away that thought quickly. After a further slurry of brain-dead advertisements, the talk show came back. Hi, sorry for that sudden break, folks. I think we had a slip in the back room. Someone throwing banana peels back there. A cartoon sound button played, followed by an awkward silence. Well, were this my night show, I'd expect a sea of laughter about now. But I'm sure you're all laughing in your cars. Speaking of my television night show, make sure to tune in tonight at 8 p.m. Central for the unveiling of Express, TM newest global innovation. I'm honored to be the choice delivery method of this exciting announcement. Remember, if it's not Express TM, it's not the best. See you tonight. A pre-recorded cheering track played as the outro jazz blared, and we were back to yet more commercials. I laid against my headrest. My workplace was in the big city. We had our own parking garage at the law firm of Jensen and Jelliard. But don't take the partner's spots, or even God himself can't save you. Speaking of parking, I was usually one of the last ones to arrive in the morning, which meant all of the good spots were taken in the upper floors. On top of that, I was even more late because of damned construction. I simply refused to get up at 3 in the morning to save myself a small walk. So I had to park, as usual, in the ever-dark third-floor basement. It even had flickering lights in some places. Dramatic. I closed my eyes as I mentally prepared for the day. It was always the same feeling, not wanting to be home and not wanting to be here. Either way, there was bound to be something unpleasant. I shut my car door and adjusted the purse over my shoulder. My heels clicked against the concrete as I walked, echoing amongst the empty darkness. It was so dim, in fact, that I thought about pulling out my phone's flashlight. I always felt some degree of nervousness walking through here. It didn't help that I already felt nervous about other things. For example, I was one of the lucky few that was on the partner track, being trained directly under Mrs. Jensen, whose mother was a founder of Jensen and Jelliard. I wanted this. I needed it to stay that way, and yet the static is coming. The sickness will infect us all. I stopped walking, blinked. I looked behind me, then to the side, but it was still just as dark as before. I couldn't see a thing. "Hello," my call echoed. One of the nearby fluorescent lights flickered on. I turned and saw someone lying against a chain link fence. a fence that protected some equipment or other. The person that sat there was an old woman with gray, wily hair wrapped in third-hand coats. My briefly racing heart slowed. I knew her. I took a calming breath, then walked towards her. Miss Allabrow, the woman looked up at me with an expression of confusion. It slowly honed in and shifted into a toothy smile. "Elaine, is that you, dear?" "Miss Allabrow, you shouldn't sleep here," I replied. "If the maintenance man or garage manager catches you, it'll..." The woman lurched up suddenly, grasping my hand tight as her eyes widened. Her expression changed from smiling to warning. "The static comes, Elaine. Stay away from the screens. Be careful what you wish for." I bit my lip. It was never easy to see someone forced to sleep on city sidewalks, but it would be worse if she was caught here. "Go to the shelter on 5th. They should be able to room you for a while, okay?" The woman slowly sat again. In a gesture, I held out my hand instinctively, thinking I'd be helping her up, but she handed me something instead. "The time draws near. Keep this close, Elaine, and you'll be safe. Say hello to him for me." She stood up by herself and shuffled into the darkness. I watched her go. Eventually, I couldn't see her anymore. In looking down at my hand at what she had given me, I was confused. It was some strange piece of metal. Small, circular, intricate, and about the size of my palm. I wasn't sure if it was a piece of something down here, so I packed it into my purse and continued towards the elevator. I could hand it off to maintenance later. Onwards to my work day, my reflection eyed me back as I stepped up to the shiny chrome doors of the elevator. The soft dings echoed as it passed each floor to eventually arrive. The doors closed behind me as I pressed the button for my floor. After a moment, I frowned. The elevator wasn't moving. "Damn thing," I muttered. The button clicked as I smacked it a few more times. The light buzzed then, flickering on, and we were finally moving. I closed my eyes with a sigh. This ride was always the last piece before the chaos. In the blackness, I felt a strange sensation. A fuzzy headache in the back of my skull. I frowned as I exhaled. Damn, this one hurt. Keeping my eyes closed only seemed to make it worse, so I opened them and took a pill from my purse. That's right, no water bottle. I was a pro. The TV mounted in the elevator flickered on. I glanced up at it. It was only filled with static, buzzing, but I thought I saw the flicker of a face. I tried to study it closer. Then suddenly, the doors opened. There she is. My long stare jolted to surprise as my assistant, Jack, said this, arms outstretched. He had been standing there waiting by the doors. "Jesus, are you trying to give me a heart attack?" I replied. We entered the bustle of the firm together. Phones ringing and answered, people carrying more paper than should be humanly possible, and of course, an armada of corporate interior decoration. It was quite the contrast to the dingy parking garage. I was convinced that the designers had simply purchased all of the gold accents that Target had to offer. Jack looked at me conspiratorially. "Do you have any pressing work this morning?" "Not at the moment." "Why?" "Then we're going to have breakfast in the food hall, and you're going to tell me all about it." I already had breakfast. He gave me a frank look. "Okay, maybe I didn't," I admitted. "But I don't know what you're talking about anyway." "Oh, sure. Who would have anything to say about how you saved Express Electronics single-handedly, becoming the favorite person of all right fine," I interrupted. "But you're buying, got it?" We walked through the extensive corridors until we made it to the food hall, passing many other paralegals on the way. It wasn't anything too large, and we shared it with all of the businesses in this building. But it was nice. A coffee place, a sandwich joint, and a few other fast food locations were set up throughout. The seating was in the middle, the businesses on the edges. One particular restaurant specialized in breakfast, so we ordered our food from there. Jack did actually pay for me. To him, though, that was likely a symbol that he'd effectively paid for my story too. "So, tell me everything," he said eagerly, having vacuumed up his breakfast to ask questions faster. I was still on mine. It was nothing really. I muttered between bites of an egg sandwich. "Come on, you've got to tell me where you get that courage," I sighed. "Really, it's not a big deal. I just made a casual suggestion during a war room. I can't really talk about the details, but please, just a casual suggestion." You and Mrs. Jensen were presenting to the admin. It was all over the schedule for that conference room. I glared. "Do you actually want to hear the story or not?" He shrugged and sat back, zipping his lips. I continued after another bite. "Like I said, I can't talk about the details, but I reread the case files for a couple of days before I saw an opening." "And," Jack chimed, "and yes, my strategy caused Judge Adamson to grant us a stay. A stay on a class action suit this big. Even Adamson must know that they'll just be able to launch it now with no problems before any real barricades come up. Yep. Not to mention that Adamson was our preferred judge, I thought." Jack rolled his eyes. "Just admit it. You blew their socks off with your brilliance, and now your leaps and bounds up the partner track. Rumor has it that Mrs. Jensen is pretty pleased with you." I looked up at that. "You think so?" "Honey, you're already past the glass ceiling," he leaned in to whisper. "I also heard that Mrs. Jensen has someone important she wants you to meet today. It's been pretty hush-hush, but everybody saw the unmarked black vehicles pull up." I continued with my breakfast without a reply. Jack seemed to study me as if he had just noticed something. "Are you okay, Elaine?" "Yeah, I've just been having strange dreams lately." Jack shook his head. Whatever you say. As the day went on, Jack ended up being exactly right. After we had finished breakfast and got back to work, lunch came and went. Then a doe-eyed new hire came to tell me that Mrs. Jensen wanted to see me in her office. Despite my good standing, I couldn't help but feel nervous. Jack was usually right about rumors, so what important person did Mrs. Jensen want me to meet? I rode the admin elevator to the uppermost floor, the 20th floor. It was also the nicest looking area of the building. Garish carpets for an office, plants, large paintings on the wall, the whole nine. It was down the hall and up to a reception desk to reach my destination. The woman sitting at that desk stood with a smile. "Mrs. Edwards, please wait here while I check if they're ready for you." I heard muffled laughter from the office as I sat down. The receptionist waited a polite amount of time after the sound before dialing her phone. I shuffled nervously. "Mrs. Edwards is here." "Yes, I'll send her in." She turned back to me and smiled again. "They're ready for you." The receptionist stood, walking forward to open the door for me. I took one more second to breathe before standing up myself. Mrs. Jensen's large office was filled with modern decor, placed throughout to give the room fluidity. Wavy wooden tables with glass tops. Short, square couches that could in no universe be comfortable. And of course, quite the city view. Even though it was only about 20 stories up, it was still impressive what you could see from all the way up here. I swallowed. I felt like a lamb in the den of a lioness. No, a mouse in the den of a lioness. I could no longer delay with distraction once I looked toward the great oak desk in the back. There were two people there. Mrs. Jensen, of course, her professional air buttoned up tight into a custom suit. But there was also a tall man with a permanently smug expression. His hair was slicked back, clothes expensive looking if not very stylish. Mrs. Jensen smiled as she turned to greet me. "Why, hello again," she said as her receptionist closed the door. I crept forward warily. "How are you, Elaine?" "Good, how are you?" "Good, I'm also good. Good weather we're having." "Good," I muttered. Mrs. Jensen was about to reply before the man stepped forward, laughing. "Not one for small talk. I get it, me neither. Let's skip to business then." The man shook my limp hand. "So then, you're the hero?" I must have had quite the help me expression, because Mrs. Jensen stepped in to save me. "Where are my manners? Elaine, this is Bobby Dixon, the CEO of Express Electronics. Mr. Dixon, this is Elaine Edwards." That information did not save me at all. "Bobby, please." Mr. Dixon was my father. A silence stretched on as we all stared at each other. Was this the moment where I said something? Worry clawed at my gut as I reached for words. This guy was the head of Express. That somehow made terrible sense. I clamped that thought shut before I accidentally said it out loud. "Oh wow, hi," was all I managed. Bobby raised an eyebrow at me. "It's all right. People are always stunned by me, even when my dad was still in control." "So, you are the hero then, yeah. You made that iron solid defense for me." "I did," I said, managing a small smile. "Well then, you don't seem too proud of it," Bobby said. "Sorry if we seem tired," Mrs. Jensen interjected. "We've had several long days of making sure everything was in order for you. We may have stalled things, but we've still got a battle plan to make." "Understandable. Well, as a reward, I suppose I should give you ladies a little hint. We've been testing EE already in pockets throughout the city. We think this'll be a great launch. The markets just can't predict my genius, I tell you." "E?" Mrs. Jensen smiled as Bobby laughed hard at his own joke. "That's great, Bobby. I'm sure E will be remembered for generations to come." Mrs. Jensen said. Bobby paused, then looked at us both pointedly. "You know what? I think I'm suddenly into lawyer ladies. What would you two say we all go and get a drink? My treat. We can ditch this snobby palace for somewhere with liquor. We can even take my sweet red Ferrari." Bobby waggled his eyebrows. Mrs. Jensen chuckled with the artificial flavor that only an uncomfortable corporate bigwig can manage. "We're of course flattered by the offer, but unfortunately, we're both married," she said. Bobby shrugged. "Doesn't have to mean anything. Come on. Based on your looks, you probably haven't slept with your husbands in, 10 years? They're probably salty old men anyways. Could be fun." Neither of us said anything. Bobby frowned. "But suit yourself, I guess. I appreciate your hard work. Keep at it, sport." He patted my shoulder and strode off. "We can have a bright future together. Anyways, I better get going." I heard him mumble to himself as he opened the door. "Stiff bitches," Mrs. Jensen and I exchanged a glance. "So, Elaine," she said quickly, as if to wash the interaction away. "Any new ideas on our next strategy? The CPA isn't just going to roll over." We sat and talked legal jumbo for a while. I was right. The green, upholstered, very square chairs were definitely not comfortable. Still, it was easier to just talk to Mrs. Jensen than Mr. Dixon. But I was still nervous. She was kind of an assertive presence. She showed me further details of the case, and I made more suggestions. She commented on how young blood always had the sharpest eye for this, and even told me a little about herself. "You know, I didn't want to be a lawyer originally," she said. "Really? But you're so good at it. You really harness the courtroom." "What did you want to be?" she chuckled, smiling. "Don't laugh. An actress," I smiled. I could see that. I mean, the courtroom is pretty much a stage. Eventually, I left her office to do my own work. Pretty soon, though, the work day ran out. My only option was to go home. To my surprise, Mrs. Jensen caught me again just as I was taking the elevator. "Oh, Elaine." "Yes, Mrs. Jensen. Sorry about him earlier. Just try to ignore it." I gave her a fake smile, nodded, and kept on. My thoughts were cloudy as I drove back home. That damned construction was causing bumper-to-bumper traffic downtown. It gave me plenty of time to think, I guess, whether I wanted it or not. Also, plenty of reasons to honk at other drivers. "We've already got a lot of speculation on Express, TM newest project," said Fast Talk Fred. Lots of posts on Fred's forum about how positive everyone is. Of course, there's a few misguided stinkers, but we all know they're just trolls anyway. What do you think, Ginny? Well, Fred, I know we can't say much about the new innovation just yet, but I can tell you this, folks. I've been lucky enough to have a sneak peek, and I must say it'll change our lives forever. Express Electronics TM is truly a boon. A strange, chilly sensation crawled up my neck. It must be that damned headache from earlier. I guess the acetaminophen had worn off. I rubbed my temple with a free hand. "That's great to hear, Ginny, and I agree. You know, while we can't tell you the secret just yet, I can offer you all another surprise. Thanks to Express Electronics TM becoming an affiliate of my shows, we're prepared to offer you a special 20% discount across Express TM entire website." You heard that right, folks. They're so excited about their new product that you could get a new phone, television, or whatever you need at a cut. Pre-recorded clapping played. "You know, my teenage daughter has been begging me for her own phone. How do we get this discount, Fred?" "Glad you asked, Ginny. Just use code FRED at online checkout or even in store. That's code FRED. "Really? That's great. You know what else is great?" There was a pause before Fred replied. His words were slow and dark. "Why, yes, Ginny, I do." The pressure in my head built. I winced as I reached towards the radio dial. Maybe turning down the volume would help. Guess I was going to have to take another pill when I got home. I was so focused on the pain in my skull that I didn't notice until moments later that the radio was silent. Silent for several noticeable seconds. Only static hummed, all until one sentence was spoken. "Elaine wants to escape." My car came to a slow halt at a red stoplight. Had I heard that right? I sat there in confusion, breathing shallow breaths. I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A smiling, familiar face peering into my window. I gasped as I flipped sideways to look at it, but something changed. Everything changed, like watching the sky, then being forced underwater. My vision darkened. I was going deeper, deeper, until no light was reaching me. When that darkness faded, things were different. Terror filled me as I looked outside of my windshield. The city was gray, full of abandoned vehicles, and so empty. I tried to open my door to see what was wrong, but it locked itself. That talk show host spoke from the radio again, his voice low. "He'll be a real asshole tonight. He'd rather ignore you than deal with what he's done," Fred tusked. There's just no helping you, is there? A case as lost as a ship at sea. At least, not until E helps us all. Helps you even though you don't deserve it. But you do deserve everything else, don't you? That haze in the back of my head seemed to stab at me. Soft, then sharp, pulling me painfully backwards. The doors will open and the world will be changed. A gray world in a gray mind overtaken by its own greed. Watch the screens, Elaine, watch the screens. Fred began to laugh, a laugh that echoed darkly. That laugh began to sound strange. It burbled oddly into a whining sound that pushed at me. Louder, louder. Then I recognized it. I blinked. The sound was a car horn behind me. I gasped shakily for air as though I really had been in water. The pain faded. The radio continued jauntily. That's right, and I've just got to remind you folks that it's site-wide. Don't forget about their in-store trade-in value. The world was back to normal, crowded sidewalks, bustling traffic, and colors. No more of that lifeless gray. The car behind mine honked again, the driver shouting angrily. I waved dismissal as I continued through the now green traffic light. I glanced down at the radio again. I just can't believe how gracious they are. Express is truly. I turned the radio off. When I got home, I simply stopped in the driveway. Stared at my house for a while. I had it all: white picket fence, a mortgage, a husband. Yet, I just want to escape. I pulled forward. The garage door clanged shut behind me. I sat there in my car, not wanting to leave, but my stomach urged me on. I stepped out of my car and eyed the other vehicle in the garage, a red sports car. My key opened the interior door. I stepped inside warily, like going into a known hazard zone. The air always felt like this, or at least it has for a long time now. Tense and fragile, like a precarious stack of glass that only needed an offensive breeze before it came crashing down. It had been piling up for quite some time. Our house was nothing too special, but it was more than others had. A living room, dining room, kitchen combo, and a sitting room on the other side. We had a small backyard and an upstairs, but there were only a couple of bedrooms. An interesting 3/4 play from Johnson, though I'm not sure how he expects to get the ball out of that corner. My husband was planted where he usually was, on the couch watching sports, all in a dark cave of closed curtains. By the stagnant look of things in the room, I guessed he still hadn't found a new job. I sighed and tossed my keys onto the entry table, but just stood there for a moment. The urge to pick the keys back up and go somewhere else was strong. I didn't go. I never did. I walked into the kitchen instead. The same dishes from a week's buildup were still there. I was supposed to cook dinner tonight, but I didn't. Instead, I simply opened the fridge and took out the Chinese leftovers from 3 days ago. The rice was definitely going to be chewy, but it was quick. I stared at the back of my husband's head. My glare was sharp, as if I was trying to make it bore into his skull. He didn't seem to notice. I almost spoke my thoughts. I'm doing well at work, I thought. Hey, did you hear about Fred Fast Talk's exclusive deal? 20% off, site-wide. Maybe we could get you a brand new TV so you can see the player's pores. The microwave burred as my husband snorted into a tissue. I took another pill as I waited for the beep. When I retrieved my food on an angry whim, I slammed the microwave shut and waited. No response, as usual. I walked towards the stairs. Who wanted him to talk anyway? No dinner tonight, he said flatly. His comment had stopped me on the third step. He wasn't looking at me, of course. He was staring directly at the TV. 100 responses came into my head, all of which were just variations of the same thing. The one that came out was, "No job today." "You were out late," he deflected. And a can of beer popped as he opened it. "And your husband might get suspicious." "You talk to any other men?" I scoffed. It was clearly meant to egg me on into a fight, something he could be louder than me at. But the gall, "You might get suspicious." Who again was the one caught on a date with my friend? I snapped. He turned to look at me. "How many times do I have to tell you? It wasn't a date. You got it all twisted in everyone's heads, and that's why they fired. That's bullshit, and you know it." I interrupted. The TV stadium yelled excitedly, as if to cheer us on. "We only had a few drinks," he said. "You probably would have had a few more if I hadn't happened to call her that night." He didn't reply to that. "You're such an asshole." I continued up the stairs. When I reached the top, I heard him stand up. I walked faster. "I'm the asshole," he shouted. I heard him coming up the stairs after me, but by then I had shut the door to the guest room. The place where most of my stuff had been moved. This was my only refuge in this house now. A bed, a bathroom, a TV. Under the door, the twin shadows of his legs blocked out the light from the hallway. I laid my head against the wood and audibly locked the handle. After a long minute, he left. I shook my head and turned away. The TV flicked on as I pressed the remote. Leftovers in bed it was. I searched the channels, but I just left it on what I had seen first. A rerun episode of a rom-com. I and every person on Earth had probably seen it 100 times, but what else was there? Besides, what came later is what I was waiting for. Their rom-com problems seemed so simple. Just talk to her, or why can't you see how he's feeling? But we all knew the truth. These lessons couldn't possibly apply to our own lives. We were special after all. It took a long 30 minutes to finally cool down from that confrontation. The episode was soon over anyway. Now, we were all just waiting to see what this big announcement Fred had was. A live studio audience clapped as a familiar theme played. Fred held his hands high in greeting as the cameras focused in on him. He wore his signature casual suit jacket and red bow tie. He sucked in the attention greedily, dancing on stage with an energy that could only have been fueled by 5 prior shots of espresso. "Hey there, Freddies. Long time no see. Welcome to Fred's Fast Talk. I'm your host, Fred." The audience laughed. Yes, so, to those of you who have been listening to the satellite radio shows the past few weeks, you're here for a big reason tonight, aren't you? A particular, long-awaited secret that will be revealed. Why don't we show those at home just how many we've packed into the studio today? Fire code be damned. The cameras panned to various seats as the theme song played yet again. A kid waved excitedly. A couple kissed and caused the audience to woo. The silhouettes clapped and cheered like world hunger was about to be solved. There were definitely a lot of people in there. The cameras faded back to a chuckling and satisfied Fred. Ah, finally. Now the attention's back on me where it belongs. Now I'm sure all of you are just frothing at your collars to hear this announcement, so let me start by saying that we here at Fred Fast Talk, trademark, are honored. After all, there are a lot of big secrets in the world, and not enough people to hold them. Fred paused. The audience quieted as he smiled. "Right, Elaine, who knows that better than you?" I stopped scrolling on my phone. I hadn't been paying full attention. but for a moment there I thought he'd said, "Yes, I did. So many big secrets, but each one obvious for all that." Obvious to anyone who bothers to even consider basic consequences. You think you're so much different from everyone else, don't you? But just look at you. Sitting there in bed, alone, watching an Express TM sponsored show on your Express TM brand TV. All wired to you with Express TM brand cat cables and Express TM brand internet. Maybe you should call your friend again on your Express TM brand cell phone and ask her what exactly she and your husband were up to that night. Or maybe you should tell your Express TM brand smart home system to simply turn off the TV and go to bed early. You won't though, not yet. There's a lot more to come. My heart raced. I felt frozen, muscles stiff, and unmoving as that strange headache pounded in my skull like a demon trying to escape. Fred stared at me from the TV, smiling wider and broader. A twin set of shadows blocked out the hallway light again. The floor creaked as a heavy step was made there. The darkness had a strange quality now, filmy, flickering, whining static. It's all just out there, waiting for you, one twist of a door handle away. It could all be fixed with a word, a hug, but it won't be. That world of pain and hurt you run from every single day is of your own making, your own fabricated brand of hell. Who are you anyway? You too are just a pair of common hypocrites like everyone else. You blame him and he blames you, but you're a coward too. After all, your call made him lose his job. So do you still want to escape it? The shadows seemed to reach for me. Growing as their buzzing, grainy air slithered toward the bed like poisonous snakes. The static was so painful and clouding that all I could do was grip my skull. I watched the hands creeping up closer, pulling at me, reeling me in. All of this pain can go away. Tomorrow is a new day. Do you want to escape it? I didn't answer. I said, "Do you want to escape it?" Fred demanded. Yes, I want to escape it. The strange buzz in my head slowly dissipated. The darkness melted back into place. The shadow under the door turned and left. The room was quiet. I looked around slowly. I started to breathe again. I felt strange, groggy. Had I fallen asleep? I almost felt like that. I shook myself. What was I saying? Of course it has just been another dream. That's right, folks. Isn't this exciting news? The TV said. I looked up carefully at it, but something was different. Fred wasn't looking at me anymore. Of course he wasn't. It seems that a certain bitten fruit doesn't have the monopoly on device communication anymore. Laughter echoed from the audience. Really, Fred? It will be across all Express TM devices. That's right, Ginny. It's all tied together by a powerful new AI system named EE that'll give you smooth, continuous performance and a personality you recognize. A new member of your family even. The whole thing is done over the Express TM backend too, so even legacy devices can join in on the fun. Why don't you say hello to our audience, EE? The camera zoomed in. Fred held up his smartphone and a simple face took up the whole screen. 2 blue dot eyes and mouth on a white background. Hello, world. A friendly voice said in a mainstream amalgam of English accents. Wow, simply wow. So your Express TM new AI connectivity advancement. That's right, Fred. I'm here to be of assistance to you, one and all, simultaneously. That's great. So do I have to actually call you EE or? You may address me however you wish, Fred. Maybe I'll call you Sally as revenge on my ex-wife. The crowd laughed. But anyway, When can your customers expect to enjoy this revolutionary new connectivity? I'm glad you asked, Fred. IE will be launching in just 1 week's time for no extra charge to every Express Electronics TM user. Across all Express TM brand products, like Ginny said. Nearly so, yes, 3rd generation and above. All of these things will join together as one for a better living. The audience's clapping and cheering was cut off as I shut down the TV. I simply held the remote at arm's length for a moment. Maybe Mom was right. I am crazy, I muttered. I decided to call the doctor tomorrow. I'd make an appointment and try to figure out just what the hell was wrong with me. I went towards the bathroom to get ready for bed. After all, tomorrow was a new day. Can you believe that, sellout? This was a different radio show for On My Way to Work. Call In with Cass, a direct rival to Fast Talk Fred. In being rivals, this show wasn't afraid to speak ill of anything Fred supported. They were lucky they had the numbers. Otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised if Fred tried to shut them down. I mean, who actually wants an AI spying on them all day and night, to know your history for all of your devices and your tendencies, reporting back? Talk about a layered shadow government. It's an ultimate invasion of privacy. Yeah, those are my thoughts too. Probably everyone's thoughts. Honestly, I think the real fear is just behind that. Oh yes, the AI is just a machine after all. What we should really be worried about are the crazies at the helm, who's getting all of the information about your kids, your life. That fucking asshole Bobby Dixon probably has a big red butt that'll let him spy on all of the brunettes in town. It's right next to his bathroom camera feeds. Seriously, there was one more piece of news about it all, the second host continued. Apparently, those CPA lawsuits have flunked. E will likely be up all of our asses very soon before any kind of injunction can set in. Yikes. We all know Adamson is bought anyway. Just gives me the chills, that's all I can say. That's enough yap about the ever-precious Express Electronics, though. We'll keep you listeners updated as it goes. How about some classic rock to remember the good old days before all of this dystopian shit? After an interlude track, the talk show switched to music. I listened to it numbly as I drove onward. I eventually found my way into the parking garage, scanned my badge, and soon swiveled into the lot. It was a trip straight to the 3rd floor to save myself from the embarrassment of hope. As I parked and got out of my car, I eyed the place where I had seen Miss Allabrow yesterday. She was gone, thankfully. It was probably for the best. My eyes turned to the ground as I walked, consumed by my thoughts. The last few months swirled in my mind. It contained guilt mostly, but also worry. What if my successful defense of Express did cause harm? What if all of the things Cass said on his show were right? I pushed the thoughts away. If I hadn't come up with the plan, someone else would have. Right? The elevator dinged as it arrived. The silver doors rumbled closed behind me as I stood in patient silence. I pressed the button for my floor, checked my phone as the elevator started moving. There were nothing but work emails to read. I put my phone back into my inner blazer pocket and adjusted the purse on my shoulder. I don't know why I kept checking it, really, hoping someone else would have sent something. Someone is here. A familiar voice replied. I swallowed. No, not again, please. I held my head. But why? You deserve it all, Elaine. The elevator jerked to a halt, whining metal, creaking cables. I tried to catch my balance in panic. It felt like the elevator cabin had tipped to the side. The overhead lights flickered off. The elevator's mounted TV was my only light now, static dancing across its screen in a crowd. I felt numb, but that distant panic threatened to set in at any moment. Think. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I tried to think of who to dial. Jack, Mrs. Jensen. They'd probably just call maintenance, who would then call the fire department. I pressed the emergency button on the elevator, but nothing happened. In glancing at my phone, I saw that I still had service. I shakily dialed 9-1. The tone rang as I held onto the railings. "Come on," I muttered. A voice eventually came on the line. 911, what's your emergency? Hi, I'm stuck in the elevator at my work. Jensen and Juilliard. I think it stopped. The line was silent. Crackling noise. Hello, the voice that replied tisked sadly. Poor Elaine. Stuck in such hard situations with no way out. But I'll help you escape. I lowered my phone. The elevator TV changed screens, flickering between advertisements, TV shows, historical footage until finally, Fast Talk Fred stared at me from his desk. A wide smile dominated his face. You're right, you know. He was going to cheat that night if it hadn't been for that prophetic phone call you made. That one, chance call you happened to dial, just so you could brag about how you got hired at Jensen and Juilliard. So long ago, and yet it still rules you how fragile. It's okay though. He cheated anyway, with someone else you don't know. I felt anger rush up in me as I growled. Shut up. I reached down and threw my high heel hard. The TV screen cracked under the impact, splitting Fred's smiling face into a spiral of repetitions. His voice glitched as he continued on. But you deserve it, Dee, don't you? You know that just as well as anyone. Are you proud you made E launch after all? Maybe, with a bit of SS suffering, you can make up for your mistakes. The TV sparked as Fred laughed. The sound seemed to echo impossibly, then all faded suddenly to black. I breathed in that quiet moment. Only darkness surrounded me. The elevator lurched again, causing me to stumble as it shot upward. It rose at an impossibly fast speed, making me feel sick, making my head pound with those laughing whispers. I slid down to the floor. We careened faster. I curled into a ball. Couldn't anyone help me escape? You deserve it all. Stop it, I cried. Suddenly, the elevator froze. I glanced up shakily. The doors dinged with a happy tone as they slid wide open. Before me were city streets. Familiar, yet alien, from my nightmare. Roads of gray, a sky of gray. Transparent mist spilled over the impossible rooftops above to the deadness below. Empty cars were scattered about, doors open. Everything was empty of all signs of life. The air smelled cold. That first, sharp pinch that came right before snow. Fred chuckled. Welcome home, Elaine. You're finally here.